Hello, Janice.
Hi, Jiaxing. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. I think it's been a couple of months since we've had La Kopi. Yeah,
I
really
know.
excited to be back.
Can you believe it's already February? Like, where did a year go? I thought I just said Happy New Year to you, and here we are in February.
Yeah, and we are gonna say Happy New Year again because
I know to
Chinese.
all of you who are joining us now, Happy New Year because we might not have seen you since then. Maybe drop a note in the comment section and let us know, where are you from and where are you joining us from today?
Yep. Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in and joining us today. And I'm Jia Xing.
And I'm Janice. We're both from the Google Developer Relations team, and we look after the developer and startup community here in the Southeast Asia region.
Yep. We hope everyone is keeping safe and well wherever you are. And do leave a comment in the live chat and let us know where you're tuning in from.
Yeah, and that's also where we're taking all the questions. So please do leave your any questions that you have in there. And in case you have friends who are joining us here for the very first time, so let us share a little bit about who we are and what this is all about. So, Google Developer Space, if you have visited us before in our office, is a home for developers and startup from around the region to learn, connect, engage, be inspired. And we really want to empower you and the community to our people, programs, network, and technologies.
And Lakopi at Developer Space is a monthly open mic night for the developer community to learn from one another. And each month we select a tech team and we get developers from our community to share their projects. And this month, our topic is web development. And tonight we have a total of 3 speakers joining us. We are super excited because I think this is one of the this edition, all 3 are actually graduates of our Women Developer Academy, and they will
Yay.
all be sharing. Yeah, they will be sharing for about 10 minutes each. And you're welcome to submit your questions, and we'll get to them at the end of each speaker session. So for this Lakopi, we have firstly Pradheepa from Discovery Networks Asia Pacific sharing about introduction to Oauth 2.0, Sarah from Twilio sharing a quick peek into WebRTC, and Neha from Visa Singapore to share how you can build progressive web apps for AR experiences.
Well, without further ado, let us welcome our first speaker. We have Pradheepa. She's a senior software engineer at Discovery Network Asia, and she's also one of our recent Women Developer Academy graduate, as Yasing was sharing earlier. So I'm really excited because yay to more women in tech speakers. We can't wait to hear about her project. Today she'll be sharing about an introduction to Oauth 2.0, so what it means to you as a developer, and to discuss all the different roles that is involved in this OAuth 2.0 authorization flow. All right, over to you, Pradheepa.
Hey everyone, thanks for accommodating me in this talk and welcome everyone for the talk. This is going to be an oversimplified and introduction to Oauth 2.0. I'm sure most of you have heard of this Oauth 2.0, so I'm just going to put this in perspective of the developer. So Oauth 2.0 is a standard for authorization. So most of the time, this authorization standard is overlooked by the developers, causing our application vulnerable. So let us look at how to build a secure web application. Um, about me, I'm Pradheepa. I'm a senior software engineer. I'm also an Auth0 ambassador. Auth0 is a SaaS platform that provides identity and access management. That's why I got interested in giving this talk. So let us look at the agenda for today. This is a very short agenda. So I'm going to talk about what is OAuth 2.0 means and what problem does it actually solve. And there are some key players in OAuth 2.0. So we are going to identify the roles and one of the authorization flow, or how we can secure and how we can secure an application using one of the authorization flows. Probably I'll take a web application because most of the web applications are using OAuth 2.0, but there are other applications that are using the OAuth 2.0 authorization flows. We are going to talk a lot about authorization, so I'm just going to give you an analogy or a real-time scenario where in day-to-day life, how we are encountering authorization. So this is a gantry reader in a railway station. All the gantry reader needs is an ticket. When you tap in the ticket, the reader reads the ticket and then gives you access to the platform. So in this case, the gantry reader does not verify our identity, does not check whether it's your this is some person, or this is the age of this person. It doesn't try to verify the identity, just verifies whether you have the token or not, having the you're having the ticket or not. So once you have the ticket, you gain access to the platform. uh, Sometimes authorization is like confused with authentication. So in terms of web application, I want to say, like, when you want to log into your web application and you have to identify yourself with your username and password, that is authentication. But OAuth talks authorization. We have seen some Prime videos or some Plus videos. You will be authenticated to the platform, but you will not have the privilege to access some videos. So that is authorization. And what problem of authorization does OAuth solve? And what is the authorization this OAuth talking about? This is one scenario which was already there before OAuth standard was available. We have already heard of Yelp application. The Yelp application is asking us to share the Gmail ID and password. If you look at this, this is like this is the password you wanted to log into your Gmail, so that Yelp can send an email on our behalf. This is like high level of trust we have to do Yelp, because if you share your Gmail ID and password, Yelp can access more than just your email ID and contacts. But how else we can authorize Yelp to send an email? I have an account with Google, but let's say if there is a provision for me to share some temporary credentials with Yelp with specific scope, saying that you can only send an email, you can retrieve a contact. If there is a provision for a user to achieve this, that's OAuth standard. So let's look at another use case. This is a common use case as well. Normally we have a tweet scheduling app. So the user will normally log into the tweet scheduling app and click on connect to Twitter or something. And then it gains some temporary credentials. And with that credentials, it will post a tweet in the account. It schedules the tweet and then it posts on that time. So these two are common use cases which you have seen. Um, so I'm going to show you the real-time use case. I have logged into Buffer, which is a tweet scheduling application. So what I'm going to do is, like, I'm going to initiate the authorization flow. I'm already connected to Twitter. So what I'm going to do is, like, let me revoke this. So I can just show you what the user journey looks like. So I'm logged into Buffer account. Now I wanted this Buffer schedule, this application to schedule my tweet on my behalf. Let's say I add a new channel. Now I'm going to click on Twitter. The moment you click on Twitter, you're actually initiating the authorization flow for web application. So you click on Twitter, then says, I'm moved from buffer.com to twitter.com. So what are all the information I'm seeing? Twitter says, like, hey, some application called Buffer wanted you to authorize it. But if you give the authorization, it can do all these functions. This is the scope of the you are defining for this application. And once you authorize it, you will be able to the client application, which is the Buffer application, can uh, can post a tweet. So let's say I'm done with this. So Twitter is verifying my identity, and then it is sharing some temporary credentials back to its own application called Buffer. It looks very plain and simple from the user journey perspective. Let's say, for example, there was some malicious application or some extensions running, and the temporary credentials is being hacked by that application. Can it schedule a tweet on my behalf? It can sure do. So that's why the OAuth defines a standard saying that give a token in a nice way so that the other application cannot hack your access. And also what I mean by revoking an active session is, like, you can go to Twitter account, go to your security, and then see what are all the list of connected apps which you have given authorization to. Let's say you don't want to use Buffer anymore, you don't want to have a standard authorization, standing authorization, you can just go to the account and then remove the access. So that's plain and simple. um, so when I mentioned the temporary credential, the one I am highlighting in red color, that's the temporary credential. We call that as an access token because it gives you access to access your resource or post a tweet. So the buffer application ideally would make this API call, like a REST API call, and add this access token in the header. This token does not say that, hey, this token should be used by only this application. No, it doesn't say anything. That's why we have to protect this token and we have to exchange the token in a secure way. So we have seen we have named them so far we have been talking in terms of Twitter and buffer and tweets, right? So actually these have a specific name in Oauth 2.0 terminology. The user is called the resource owner. So I'm the owner of the credentials, so I key in my username and password, so I'm called the resource owner. It's not necessarily that the resource owner should be an actual user. It can be a server also. Mm, and buffer is called a client here. The client is the one which is trying to access the protected resource, which is going to which will use the access token in the temporary credentials. Like in our Yelp case, Yelp is our client. So in this case, buffer is the client. What is an authorization server? It is the server where I hold the account. The resource owner is having the account where my credentials are managed. So in this case, it's Twitter. It can be Google or Facebook or anything. Any server that is capable of issuing tokens to third-party server is called authorization server. What is a resource server? The name suggests that it's a server that is protecting, that is hosting our resource. In this case, a tweet, or it may be a Facebook post. Anything can be a resource. So this is a protected resource which needs an access token to be received. So I'm going to show you a simple flow of grant flow, like how this authorization flow should occur so that you can retrieve the access token successfully. But there are multiple steps. The Oauth standard suggests that depending on your application type, these are all the steps you have to perform to get your access token, so that I wouldn't say it cannot be compromised. It would be difficult to compromise. So I'm going to show you one flow. Um, I have it here. Let me show you this. So let's say buffer is starting to work, right? It's trying to develop the application called buffer. So what it does is, like, buffer will go to the Twitter authorization server and then say, like, hey, I'd like to work with you. And then it says, like, it registers with a Twitter developer account and gets a client ID and client secret. So this is the first step. And then the next step onwards, the application is available now. So I'm the user. Now I'd say, like, I'm telling the buffer application to schedule my tweet. In this case, I intentionally draw this line as a dotted line because everything is transparent and is happening via browser, and none of the any information that should be shared across this channel should never be a secure one. You should not share your client secret or password during these transactions. So what I'm going to do is, like, so as I mentioned, this we have seen in the user journey. I'm going to say schedule my tweet in the buffer application. So buffer says, like, happy to, but I don't have access to your Twitter account. You know what? Let me redirect you to the Twitter. But since you're coming from my application, I'll give you some information like this. You take all this information and then you go to the authorization server. So what are all these information? Remember, we saw the consent screen where the list of functionalities that the client can perform that the Twitter showed me. So the Twitter has to prepare that consent screen. So if you remember that the consent screen had the application called buffer, so I need to send the client ID and then the list of functionalities I can perform, the scope. And remember, when we completely authorize the consent, it redirects back to us, the buffer application, right? So I need to send that information as well. Like, after this, all these exchanges are happened, you redirect me back to this. But then I know that this is not a secure application, so I'm not going to ask for access token. So give me something called authorization code. We will deal with getting access token later. So now the user is directly um, talking to the Twitter authorization server. This page we saw, this is the consent page. Again, this is a browser. So this authorization is saying, hey, buffer application is asking for access. Do you want to authorize it? And it shows the consent screen. So these are all the information which received from the buffer, right? The client ID, scope, and redirect URL. So all this information are now available. The user says, okay, yeah, I agree. I know this application. I'm the one initiated it, so I'll agree to this. So once the consent is happening, the authorization server know where the redirect should occur. So what happens? It based on the redirect URL, it will redirect back to the buffer application. So all it has is a code for now. Um, Buffer application cannot schedule a tweet, or I cannot call the REST API with this code. So what it does is like, you know what, I have a backend, which is a secure server. So let me pass this code to the secure server. So it just passes it. And from now onwards, if you see, this is not a dotted arrow anymore. This is protected, this channel is protected. This is two servers talking in the backend. So let's say this backend server can be your Node.js server or a Spring Boot, your IBM application server, it could be anything. So your processing logic can sit here. You can have your own client ID and client secret and everything. And this channel is super secure. No one can intercept it. So now the Twitter buffer application, remember in the first step, it got the client ID and client secret. It will pass through this so that the Twitter server knows that this is the genuine application that is requesting the access token. So this part is an important step for validating before we are handing over the access token. So this is the authorization code we received in the first step. So what it does is like it verifies everything. If everything checks out okay, then it returns the access token. So all I need is an access token. The buffer application is happy. So what it does is like it makes an API call to the Twitter API server with the access token, and then the tweet happens successfully. Uh, this code grant, this flow is called authorization code grant flow, which is commonly used in web applications. The name is because you are exchanging code for token. In this case, if you look at it, you're asking access token, but then you are giving code. The code which we received from the front end, you are exchanging it. This is not the only authorization flow available. Based on our application infrastructure, there are defined steps. So I hope you understand how the buffer application would have securely access it. So I'm coming back. Yeah, so as I mentioned that we have different kinds of grant flows. So I'm just mentioning the web application, but we have, this is an brief summary of the entire stage. I explained in stages, but this is the whole summary. We have something called client credentials flow, where there is no user at all. So you don't have to go through extra step to exchange your code for a token. You can directly get a token because it's all running in a dedicated backend server. So this is a summary, or you can say a cheat sheet. So what kind of says like, if you are using this kind of application, you use this kind of flow. So in the authorization code flow is the one which we saw with Pixie, meaning that instead of sending a static secret, you can generate a dynamic secret and then you can exchange it to the authorization server. So this is the summary. Some terminologies I used, maybe we don't know. This is the Oauth terminologies which we used during the user journey. Scope is the permission, redirect URL is the return URL. Response type is you can either ask for code and then it can exchange it for token. The client ID and client secret is used to identify the client. And finally, we got the access token. Refresh token is something when the access token is going to expire, we can also request authorization server to give refresh token in addition. So you can keep the session live. You don't have to go back to the user to get the consent again. That's not a, it'll be frictionless. So this is the references I have referred through. You can play using the developers.google.com.playground. You can give your Gmail credentials and make an API call. There is a nice way to get your code and exchange it for token. You can play around with all this references. Let me know if you have any questions. We come to the end of the session. And thank you so much for Google Developers Space. And thank you all for listening.
Thanks, Pradheepa. There were so many useful references. I think, if you didn't manage to catch the links, don't worry. We will upload the slides and share them with you as well. Yep. And yeah, remember to leave your questions. I think there's one question that just came in. Yeah, let me just flash it up on screen. So Tamizi, he's tuning in from Batam. Hello, all the way from Indonesia. Yeah, he asked, how do you handle if the token has been expired? Is there any refresh method?
Usually when you get an access token, it comes with an expiry. So normally what we do is like when we get to the authorization server, we get an access token and a refresh token. So when you make an API call, you get access, your access token is expired. Then you can use your refresh token. You send it back to the authorization server directly and get a new token, and that can live for brief amount of time, and then you will get a new refresh token. So this is to keep your session alive for so long.
Thanks, Pradheepa. We also have some questions from the audience during registration. Maybe we can pull some of them up.
Sure.
Yep. So one question came in. What are some use cases and any challenges you faced when implementing them?
Yeah. So use case is very simple, which is the one which I showed you, like scheduling a tweet. If you are trying to access any protected resource, I'm sure you would have seen many REST APIs protected with Oauth 2.0. The most common use case is like I showed you, managing all the social channel together, like Buffer. They'll post you on Instagram, they'll post you on Facebook. So that's most common use case. And sharing your Google Docs, for example. So sometimes you have to share Google Docs with others through an application, which will list all your latest updated information together. So that's the most common use case. The challenges, I would say, it depends on the application which you want to develop. For example, like I mentioned, right, we have to maintain active session, but we have. What happens is, like, let's say you wanted to get a long-lived token. Like, let's say I get an access token for the one whole day, so you don't have to refresh it, right? That looks like a better scenario because you don't have to keep refreshing it. But if someone gets hold of this token, then they can keep it and use it for the whole day. So it's based on the security compromises which you have to make. So ideally, what standard does not say like how long you have to keep the access token alive or how long you have to keep the refresh token alive. So it depends on us, the developers, to find a good compromise between how long do we have to go for a refresh token. So yeah, that's finding the right amount of time to have a refresh token on your live session. That's the challenge, I would say.
Thank you so much, Pradheepa. Conscious of time, we're probably going to move on to the next speaker. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, so next up, we're going to welcome Neha Mori. She is a senior software engineer at Visa Singapore. And today, she'll be sharing with us about a passion project that she built after learning about progressive web apps on Google Code Labs. So, all right, Neha, looking forward to hear about your web app enriched with AR capabilities.
Okay, sure. So, yeah, let's move ahead with this. So, are you able to hear me, Janice?
Yep, all good, Neha.
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. Okay, so hi, this is Neha, and today I'm going to share my thoughts and experience building a progressive web app for AR experiences. So, I'm senior software engineer at Visa, and I would like to share my thoughts on this particular topic today. So, let's move over to the very first slide. So basically, I'm going to give you a quick introduction about progressive web apps for all those who are like not aware or least aware about this one. So this is basically an application software that is delivered via web, and what exactly it does is like it's kind of a web application only, but it can be opened up or accessed from any browser or any device, and it will basically give you a look and feel of a mobile app. So it can work on any standard browsers that are available, and at the same time you can also add it to a home screen in the form of an icon. Then coming over to the next point, you can also enable, like you can also configure push notification with this, where the notification will be sent out to the users who have actually added it to the home screen. Then coming over to the development, so it doesn't involve a lot of complex technologies. So you can also build it with common web technologies like HTML, CSS, and and I should say JavaScript that is available. Now, why PWA? So, what's the importance of this? Since we have already a lot of native apps and websites that are rolling around, right? And so, why this is being important? So, first of all, there's no installation required. So, from the development perspective, we don't need this web apps to be deployed in the Play Store or in the App Store. It can basically be added to the home screen, and you can just access it anytime you want. Also, at the same time, you can have the offline support for this one. Then you can see that there is a decreased web page loading time. So since it supports caching mechanism and offline support, so the web page loading time is also decreased, and definitely it elevates the user experience because they don't have to wait for certain web pages to load. Then coming over to the next one is the increased conversion rates. So it will definitely help to pull in more customer base because it's more like the user experience is enhanced in this case. Then yeah, so this is the same one. Then the development and maintenance is quite easier. So currently we once you have your website ready, right, and you want to switch over to PWS, you just have to follow some of the minimal steps, or there are certain steps that you have to follow, and you can actually deploy a PWA with a very less amount of time and development cycle. Then coming over to the home screen support, so you can basically install, I should not say install, but basically yeah, you can install the icons on your mobile app, sorry, on your mobile home screen or on your desktop home screen, and you can access it at any point of time. Then, so today I'll be focusing more on how you can convert your existing website to progressive web app. So why I am taken a existing website is because there are a lot of websites already available in the market, and most of the companies have already have a dedicated website for the customers. But in case they want to also have progressive web apps created for them, then this is a very good way that they can go ahead with. So basically, how we are going to focus today is we'll see how the existing website can be converted to PWA, and then later on we will see how we can enable it with AR capabilities. So coming over here, if I talk about, so these are the three major, I should say, factors that are needed in order to convert to progressive web app. First one is the service worker. So what exactly service worker is like? It's kind of a virtual proxy between your browser and the network. So it basically caches all your assets that is present on your website, and you can access those assets when you're offline. So that's where it comes in for the offline support in case of PWA. So this plays a major role, and one of the main thing is like it runs in a separate thread from your main JavaScript code. So that way it doesn't hamper or interrupt your actual DOM that is already created. Okay, then so this is very good from the from offline support point of view, and also it will help you uh, to generate push notifications and any other notifications that you want your app to support. Then coming over to the next one, that is manifest.json file. So this is the JSON file that actually tells your browser what exactly this app is, right? So it will give the app name, the URL details, how the icon should look like, and a lot of things. So generally, if we see the PWA spec, right? If we check on Google and we see the PWA specs that is mentioned on Google, this should be manifest should be a web manifest file, right? But since JSON is quite popular in the developer community, right, so this is also being supported. So we will see each of these later in the demo that I'll be sharing. Then HTTPS. So this is also one of the major factors that you have to consider when you are trying to convert it into a PWA. So why this is being important is because in order to support a service worker, right? This is one of the HTTPS is a must. This is a mandatory, and why this is so? Because service worker, it always run on an independent thread, right? It doesn't interrupt your main JavaScript code. So in that case, in case there is any malicious intent that is sent along with the response, right? So there should be some way that it is being stopped, and that's where HTTPS comes into picture. So let's move over to the next thing. So yeah, so this is the basic website that I tried to create it with Google Code Labs. So there is a lot of amazing stuff for PW that is available on Google Code Labs, and I'll definitely share the link at the last. So you can just go ahead and you can try to build your own PWA, and also you can integrate with AR. So this is the basic website that I tried to create. It's an e-commerce website, and so you can see like there's all these furniture that is present over here. And now what we are going to do is we are going to convert it into PWA, that is progressive web app, and at later point of time we are going to enable all these assets, or I should say all these images with AR capabilities, so that you can actually visualize these I should say chairs or sofas in your drawing room, and you can actually find like select them, or you can actually add it to your cart. So before that, let me show you like what the manifest file and service worker will be like. So I will share the code with you later on, but once I have added the manifest file to my existing code, website code, I can see that under the application tab. So this is basically on Google Chrome. When you do inspect, you get the application tab, and over there are multiple options. So under manifest, you can check like, is your manifest.json file detectable? So once it's able to detect, right, you can see there are so many parameters, like what will be the name, what will be the short name will be like how your PWA will show the website name, right? So this will be something like furniture store. Then what will be the start URL? So start URL will basically be focusing on like how what will be your main page when once your app loads, right? So that is the index page that we are talking about over here. Then this is the service worker, and this will also show you a lot of details about like the offline functionalities or cache, or you can see here if you want to configure push notification, all those things are mentioned. Then coming over to the next slide. Now once my progressive web app minimum criteria has been fulfilled, right, I want to test it on my desktop, right? So basically there is an option lighthouse under the developer tools, and this you can select, and this will actually do an auditing on your web app, and this will show how efficient is your web app, right? So once I generate the report, there is a generate report option, and once I generate it, it will basically give me a report that will show me how efficient is my app. So if you see, there is one more tab here for progressive web app. So if I move forward, and you can see over here that it's showing me like what all checks have been validated from the progressive web app perspective. So you can see like it has mentioned like page load is fast enough, and I think it timed out while waiting for the start URL. So these are certain things that you have to check, and then you can accordingly modify your app code. So this is something that you have to keep in mind, because the score over here, right, it matters a lot if you want to have a very if you want to have a higher customer experience and a higher customer base, then this is something that you need to keep in mind. Okay, so once my web app is ready, you can see whenever I will access that site, right, it will actually ask me for installation. So this is I have already installed, but at later point of time when I again revisit the site, this is the icon, and this is basically an icon that is created on my desktop. So this will show over here as well that I can always click, and I can access this in the browser. So yeah, so coming over to okay, so AR is something like we all are aware about, augmented reality, and this is something that all the companies and everyone is looking forward to. Definitely, it enhances the customer experience, and it is pulling a lot of customer, and uh, your website traffic may increase like definitely increase in case you have AR enabled capabilities. So let's see why this combination is it will be great. So first of all, yeah, the real time experience for customers is very high. So for example, in my the website or the web app that I'm going to develop, right, that is definitely that will definitely attract a lot of customers just to try like how the furniture looks in their living room, and that's where it's definitely going to be an enhancing experience for them. Then the user engagement from any device, so basically you don't have to be device specific, like you have to be specific to iOS or you have to be specific to Android. You have to create a mobile app and then you have to deploy it, and then the user has to download it, and all those process makes the conversion rates really very low, and the waiting time is high in that case, and that's where the conversion rates are dropped. So for in case of PWA and AR, if you use, so definitely it will be high user engagement and also the higher conversion rates. Then at the same time, the cost of development will be comparatively low. I understand that for AR, the cost of development may be slightly higher because this is something new and everyone is putting in a lot of efforts. But if we talk about PW and AR integration, then it will be comparatively cheaper to develop and easier to develop as compared to mobile apps along with AR. So let's get on the next slide. Okay, so there are a lot of tools and frameworks available in the market that you can integrate with your existing website, and you can actually create the AR experiences for your customer base. So over here you can see like this ARJS, AR Core, WebXR Device API. These are all supported by the Android, and you can see a lot of good stuff for WebXR Device API available on Google Code Labs. So this is something you can look forward to. Then this is something that Apple provides, that is AR Quick Look, AR Kit, Reality Kit. So something that is useful for you in for iOS development. So yeah, so I have personally used the Reality Composer because I have a iPhone only. So I have used the Reality Kit and Reality Composer, I should say, and I have created a lot of AR scenes, and it's really good. And apart from that, for this demo, I have used AR Quick Look. So let's go ahead with the demo. Okay, so I am just going to go on the demo. So this is the recorded one that I have actually used. Let me start it. So in the start, if you see, right, I will share with you the changes or the minimal changes that we have to do. So this is actually very minimal changes that were done for the demo purpose. So it will let you know like how easy is the development for this one. So this is the manifest.json file, and you can see the start URL is being mentioned and the name and short name. Then this is the main.js file, and I have actually used so this involves the service worker code that I have used. So I have covered the whole life cycle of the service worker over here, like registration and installation and like caching. All these things are being covered in this file. So just quickly going over this. So this will be shared later with you as well. So you can go through the details, like what all things are needed. So yeah, this is something that I have already implemented. And then comes over the from where I'm calling service worker JS file. So over here you can see the caching. I have already included the code related to how the caching will work in offline mode. So that is also being handled over here. Now coming over to this one, this is my website. Then I will go to inspect, and the developer tools have opened. Now I will see like is my manifest.json and service worker files are there. Yeah, I can see. And you can see over here like what all icons will be shown on the mobile home screen or your desktop home screen. Then this is the service worker, and then I'll go on Lighthouse and I'll try to generate the report. So this will basically show me like how my app would be, like how efficient it is. So you can see that the report takes just it's a quick one, and yeah, so it will show some of the issues that might be there. Okay, so here you can see that there is a progressive web app option, and I can actually see like what all checks have been passed for my web app, and there are other things also that you can consider looking into. So yeah, this is the one. Okay, so you can see there are certain things that fail, so I have to work upon those, and these are the ones that pass successfully. So now here, yeah, there's this option. This is an icon that will show on my screen or on my laptop. So see, you can see over here how it would look. This is still in the uh, initial stage. So yeah, here you can see what is the look and feel. Sorry. So you can see over here what is the look and feel. It will actually look like an app. It's only like how you open the mobile app, but this is actually opened up in the browser. So the same will appear in the mobile as well. Now this is the AR code, the simple AR code that you can actually include. You can include the USDZ file that is useful to create the animated effects, and that will actually enable your AR capabilities on the website. So moving on to the next one, I will show you from my mobile, the screen recording that I have done from my mobile, and this is the one. So you can see that there is an icon over here, right? That these are all AR enabled now. This is AR enabled. Okay, so once I click on this, so there are so you can see that I can see this object. So this is the object, and how it this is the AR mode. So how this will appear, you can see in my living room. I'm just trying to see how it looks like. So basically you have to focus your iPhone, and then yeah, this is already there. So I can resize it and I can check like how it will appear. So there are a lot of things that you can include in this. You can basically scan your whole living room, and then you can try to see like how it fits in, or there are so many options available. So yeah, this is the one. Then moving back to the slide. So yeah, so this is the time for questions. But before that, I would just like to move to the resources part. You can refer to these resources if you also want to develop a PWA progressive web app along with the AR capabilities. And yeah, so any questions?
Thanks, Neha. That was really interesting.
Yeah.
Should we be expecting to see Visa come up with this soon?
Yeah, I'll discuss that with my team.
Oh, love that you actually, learned this off the code labs and created this yourself. I think it's very encouraging for
Yeah.
developers to know that these resources are available to help them build their own apps as well. I think we already have a questions, but we also have some questions in the bank. Maybe let's answer the audience question first since it's live. All right, so we have Ashley, and she's asking, how does the AR performance differ based on different mobile devices? Do you have experience on this for deployment yet?
Okay, so AR performance based on mobile devices, right? So I think it's more about like what is the device version, and what is the app version you are using. Because I have many times noticed like I have the latest iPhone and I have a separate Android phone as well, but many times it doesn't work correctly. So what I feel like is it's mostly how you have defined or designed that app, or I should say the asset, because many times the asset takes a lot of time to load. So by asset I means the object. Like in this case you can see that it took some time to load, and that's where your customer may have to wait for some time to see how it appears. So that's where it is important for like how is the asset. So I don't think it's the device, because devices will remain the same, but it's more about the asset loading time, or what is the size of the asset, and how it will behave. So that's important.
Thank you. I think there's another quick question that we can address. So we have Ahmad asking, is there a way around to develop progressive web app for iOS?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. This one actually I cannot show you right now, but this one I have actually installed on my mobile app only. You can see this is on my mobile. This is my iOS device. So yeah, I have actually tested it. So yeah, this can be done on iOS also.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think
And do you
just conscious of time, we might not have time to answer the questions that came in from registration. But yeah, for those tuning in, feel free to just leave your comments and any questions you have for Neha on the live chat, and she can answer them, continue answering them there as well. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Neha.
Hey, thank
thanks,
you.
Neha? Well, she's still going to be with us on the live chat, so feel free to ask your questions there. Neha will be there to address it.
Okay, sure.
Now let's welcome our third speaker, Sarah. Sarah is a solutions engineer at Twilio, and she'll be sharing a quick peek into WebRTC and how you can use it to quickly and effectively engage customers directly from your website. The stage is yours, Sarah.
Hi, hello everyone. Yeah, hope everyone is doing well today. And yeah, I'm the last speaker. So yeah, today I'm gonna actually touch on WebRTC and yep, and actually the problem here that we are looking at is today we live in a world where we're increasingly overwhelmed by the sheer number of options and content we can access over the internet. So if we want to buy groceries, we can simply find 3 to 4 options to look for online. And of course, the year that has passed has tremendously accelerated the rate of all businesses to have online presence. And I experienced that activities like, seeing a doctor and lessons from formal school to enrichment classes, and even gym classes, which I thought would not be optimal. If it's not face to face, all become doable online. So hence, enabling online real-time communications is critical. Firstly, for any business or anyone who wants to capture the attention of people online, and of course, to be able to bring about all the kind of real-time interactions, see and hear each other virtually. And WebRTC is the technology that can be used for that. So RTC stands for real-time communications, and WebRTC is the open source framework which enables you to implement real-time communications in browsers using JavaScript, and in iOS and Android, even native apps with the corresponding libraries. And WebRTC supports voice, video, and generic data to be sent between peers, um, allowing developers to build really powerful communication solutions. And there are many, many forms of different usage that are possible for WebRTC. Some examples here, which I see between 2 devices with WebRTC, we can do web chats, voice calls, and video calls, and enable real-time, even real-time games. We can even connect the WebRTC client to another party on the phone, and the media or data from the WebRTC client can be streamed to a server for further processing, such as recording it or even broadcasting it to more clients. For example, like what we have now in a Facebook or YouTube live session. And the diagram here sort of depicts what WebRTC does under the hood. So we as developers only need to interact with the API exposed, while WebRTC, which under the hood is implemented in C and C++, which takes care of transmitting the audio, video, and data, which includes handling the encoding and decoding, and also taking care of things like adjusting the bandwidth and quality of the video or audio, and connecting when there are any fluctuations. But to dive a little bit deeper, you do need to take care of other things other than just calling the APIs to do WebRTC. A bit of this network jargon here to connect two devices over the internet for what we call peer-to-peer connections. For WebRTC, the process can be broken down into signaling and media exchange. And signaling is sort of like the handshake process in HTTPS where the two clients need to exchange information, like the key for data exchange, codec information, IP addresses, and so on. And this signaling is not covered in the WebRTC API and needs to be handled separately. Secondly, almost all of us on the internet connect through a device which does network address translation, or what we usually call NAT devices. So it could be home routers or firewall, which will sort of allow multiple devices to connect to the internet using one public IP address. So for devices not connected in the same network, they will need to send a query to this another server called the stun server to check on the device's public IP address. And in certain NAT devices, direct peer-to-peer traffic is not possible. Then we will need to use a relay server, which is called a turn server, where media can be transferred through that. So in all, an implementation of WebRTC, where we can expect any kind of devices from anywhere in the world, there is a need to cater for these few things: the signaling, the stun, and the turn servers. And you can find a lot of sample code online on how to use the WebRTC API. And one very good source is webrtc.org. And to actually visualize what is going on, here's a glimpse of the sequence of API calls to set up the WebRTC call. So the main parties involved are the peers that we see here, the signaling server, and ICE. And ICE is a new concept here I'm introducing here, which stands for Interactive Connectivity Establishment, which essentially is the process of finding the different ways to connect the two peers. So this is handled by WebRTC, but you will need to sort of configure the stun and turn servers when we want to use the ICE to make use of all the possible routes to establish the connection. So inside the API, this is in particular in the JavaScript API, so RTC peer connection will be really the object where you will work to send and receive an offer and to send and receive media. And so we've seen that we can work with WebRTC API and need some backend setup for device communications to get WebRTC to work. And are there actually other complexities? So one challenge I experienced is the different browsers and devices that could possibly be used to access your WebRTC application. So definitely we hope that our app will be wildly popular and having tons of people wanting to use it. But there are a lot of things to tune and take into consideration in that case. For example, there are some nuances like screen share is not supported in the iOS Safari browser or other devices. And in a video call, we might get the best resolution of video displayed for the best experience, but we have to sort of balance that against the power usage and bandwidth available as well. So for certain devices, there's also experience of the phone, for example, overheating if you use certain codec and stuff like that. So this thing that I mentioned here, codec, we have not really touched on it, but it's basically a program for encoding and decoding data streams. So different devices and browsers have support for different codecs and optimization for different codec types. And all this means that we will actually need to put in some logic and decisions to be made to balance the browsers and devices that we want to support and the experience that we want to provide in your WebRTC application. And another point is with regards to the backend to support WebRTC. So we discussed that there's a need for signaling, stun, and turn servers required. So signaling and stun might not necessarily be a problem since they are only expecting traffic in the initial part of the WebRTC communication. But the turn server, when used, is expected in certain circumstances to relay all the data transferred, which could be pretty taxing. So we have to think in terms of planning for a scalable solution that needs to be properly thought through. So so far we've focused mostly on peer-to-peer connections. If you need to support something like what we're experiencing now, a live session where there are a lot of people who might be connecting in to look at a video or a voice call, for example, a peer-to-peer connection where one client has to transmit data to 100 or even thousands of other clients. That is not really scalable. So your device and bandwidth just will not be able to support that. So instead, there are other architectures that suffice where data is transmitted to a central server to be retransmitted to other clients. So there are also some decisions on top of all that complexities to make to tackle when building a WebRTC application. But the rewards are definitely great with the level of engagement that I can see that we can achieve with our audience. And there are options for you to consider of whether you want to build your WebRTC solution or actually look at some PaaS or SaaS solutions. So going purely open source, using the WebRTC library straight off will give you a lot of flexibility to integrate WebRTC into any part of your website or phone app. So this will possibly let you integrate the latest WebRTC offerings has to offer. But as usual, you will expect more coding and more logics to be implemented. And going PaaS has the benefits of extracting some levels of complexity as it does some of the handling under the hood. And usually those solutions will handle the signaling, stun, and turn servers for you, as in they might have this at the backend ready. But still some level of coding is required, and SaaS could give you the fastest time to market, but they will tend to give you a more generic experience and require launching usually another specialized app or browser window for the session, which depending on your use case, may or may not be what you want. So and what to choose really depends on what kind of experience that you want to achieve. So for example, on my own personal profile website, I'm actually using an open source WebRTC library to actually create a more engaging and interesting experience by actually allowing the video call to go directly inside the website. And some typical questions that we will ask ourselves when we consider what to use will be the cost on a particular solution. So yeah, actually the answer, there's no straight answer for this as usual. So you might hate it, but I will have to say that it depends on the expertise of your team and the solution that you're looking for. And the requirements that you are looking in your web app or even your native apps in the phone. So that's it. Thank you so much for your attention throughout. Hope you enjoyed the talk. And now it's Q&A session.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. It was a great presentation. Thanks for sharing that. This is like super relevant to this new world that we're in right now, like extra engagement.
Yeah, I think while we are waiting for people to leave their questions on the live chat, we can go through some questions that we got from registration. So the first question is, how can WebRTC be used to perform telephone to web calls?
Yeah. So for this part, there is actually a requirement to sort of have a middle tier or server that actually receives your telephone call and then translate your media into sort of a data stream that you can transmit in a voice over IP kind of format to connect to the whoever is over on the web. So basically on the web portion, this part will be handled by the WebRTC to actually be able to enable voice over IP to actually make phone calls possible over the web.
Okay, I hope that addressed the question. We've got one from the live audience, and yeah, so we've got some real questions from the real folks. So let's switch to that. So Wei Yan's got a question. So for the peer-to-peer connection brought about by WebRTC, can a communication be terminated from server side, like if it needs moderation or something similar?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So if it is peer-to-peer, it means that it is a direct connection between the two clients and the two PCs. So there's actually, I think there's no way to really do the moderation or in between. So from my experience, if you want to do some kind of moderation or server-side kind of processing, you will need the media to go through a central server where just now I briefly touched on some other topologies that you will use in WebRTC. For example, you will have something we call SFU server or a MCU server that will be able to go in the middle to publish or republish data streams, media streams, and then be able to from there to sort of take the data from one client and do some moderation before it is republished to another party.
Oh, Wei Yuan asking the tough questions, huh? Yeah. Thank you so much, Sarah and Wei Yuan, for your question as well. Yeah, and I think we are gonna be wrapping up the session really soon. Thank you for staying. I know we overshot a little, but thank you so much for your sharing, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah, for joining us today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear it, but my dog is barking in the background. So
I think it wants attention. We should not stand between you and your dog.
Yeah. So I think once again, thank you, Pradheepa, Neha, and Sarah for sharing your web development projects with all of us today. And thank you everyone for joining us till 9 p.m. Singapore time.
Yeah.
And if you would like to rewatch this session, you can always check out our Facebook page and YouTube channel. It will be up there. And the speaker presentation slides will be available on our website, so don't forget to check in. And you can also stay connected with us via our mailing list on our website and on all our different social channels.
Yeah, and lastly, of course, we want to hear about your feedback for this event because that only helps us make the next event more relevant for you. So provide us with your email address in your feedback form if you would like to stand a chance to win some gift. We'll be selecting 5 lucky winners. So remember to check your inbox later this week if you've submitted this feedback and left your emails behind for us. Meanwhile, stay tuned for upcoming events on our website and our newsletters and social channels. And we look forward to seeing you again. Good night, everyone.